Hey, Eli here. Today I want to talk to you about the Canon R52. I've had over a month with it. I've photographed several sessions. I've had 3 full weddings, an elopement, a lot of magazine work, families, all kinds of stuff. I've even photographed some $20,000 guitars. So yeah, I kind of have a little bit more of a sense of what I think of this camera, and I'm just gonna go out and say it. This thing is awesome, and there's a lot of hate on the internet, but for me, I love it. The only thing I don't like is the price, but fortunately for me, I was able to afford it. And I bought 2 of them, and they're gonna be my 2 photography workhorse cameras for the next probably 3 to 4 years. I'm always jumping around trying different cameras, but for me, this thing's a home run. I think that the new Viewfinder, the new Ergonomics, the on and off switch, the electronic capabilities, and the eye tracking actually work pretty well. Everything about this camera is an upgrade in my opinion. There are a few things that could have been upgraded just for number one, some of the buttons and stuff like that are, could have been, I think, handled a little differently. But I'm going to kind of go through this whole camera. I'm going to do a whole menu walkthrough. So if that's what you're here for, you could just jump to that. I'm going to go through pretty much every setting in here. I'm going to miss some stuff, I know it, because there's a lot. This is going to be a photography-based video. I have used this a little bit for video. I'm filming on it right now. The camera that you are seeing with the A cam is going to be in C-Log 2, edited with Dehancer Ektar 100 is the film stock simulation that I'm using. I think it's really pretty. And then my overhead camera is one of my original R5s. I have 2 R5s, 2 R52s, and an R62 to kind of compare. Autofocus, home run. It has taken a little bit of me just kind of working with the camera's settings to turn things on and off so I don't get frustrated. Because when you do introduce a lot of AI or AI autofocusing, or just I don't know how to describe it. It's not AI, but when the camera decides what to focus on, then it can be a little frustrating because you don't have control. But I found a way to turn a lot of things on and off when I do need that control on my own, or I want the camera to do it itself. For example, soccer. Photograph my daughter playing soccer. I want as many of those AI features as I can get. I used the eye tracking, worked phenomenally. When I'm taking portraits, I want a lot more control on who and what I'm photographing. So if I'm trying to photograph a ring in a hand, I want to turn off that people detect, so I don't photograph on or focus on someone's eyeballs, because it's going to gravitate straight towards the eyes. So I'll turn off that subject detect. But yeah, we're going to jump into all of that. I'm going to show you just kind of a few images that I've photographed over the last few months. I can't photo share everything because a lot of my work is magazine work, and I'm not allowed to share it until it's published. But maybe in the future I'll share some of that. But yeah, let's just say that ergonomics off the bat. I've got the 3 cameras here to compare. I've got the R62. The R62, very similar. I do feel like there's a little more grip on the R52. I do like that the on and off switch are the same. I am happy that I don't have to deal with this dial that I get a lot of hate for. I reached in and out of my camera bag a lot with multiple cameras, and I will grab this camera out like this, and I'm always turning this thing on and off to like AV, TV, bulb, manual. So I usually tape it off, but I do love having the on-off switch where it is. I do wish it didn't have that secondary click for lock. I never use it. It's just kind of like, it's not necessary, and it's kind of loud in my opinion, but it's not a deal breaker for me. I do enjoy having the mode button on top, where I can change that mode button to be something else, because I generally only shoot in manual. So if I want to dedicate that to something, that's great. I do wish that these buttons on the back here were a little more, I don't know, just different. When I'm feeling them, especially with gloves, when it's cold out, I can't get tell the difference between the two. So I just set them both to lock focus when I'm doing panoramics. The dial, or the joystick selector, I did really like the one on the R5 original. It's kind of got more of a convex, and when you're moving around the menu, it seems to be easier. When I'm moving the focus point, it's fine. It's just when I'm in the menu and trying to get those like little up and downs points that it's just kind of weird. For some reason, it doesn't work well for me. The EVF is phenomenal. It is much larger, as you can see here. Yeah, the viewfinder, gosh, it's almost like twice as large for the eyepiece, but the actual viewfinder itself, probably slightly larger, very bright. Yeah, no complaints. You know, the whole tilty flippy deal, or flippy deal for the screen's fine. I'm used to it. I do like the tilt out ones, like on the GFX series. I do prefer that. Other than ergonomics, there's not a lot that's completely different that I've noticed. It feels great in the hand. I feel like the Canon cameras are made for the hand. My thumb rests on the joystick selector, which is what I use the most, and then, you know, there's a button right here for eye autofocus. No complaints. That works great. And then having this video switch, which is really fast, is pretty cool. I haven't used it a ton. I did use it on an elopement the other day, and it was really quick, easy to use. Took me over to the video settings wherever I had set up. It was great. And yeah, so that's pretty much that about ergonomics. The eyepiece is great. Let's look at some images, and yeah, we'll just kind of come back to a full menu walkthrough, which is yeah, it's going to be a lot. So let's go over here. We'll look at some images on my computer. All right, let's look at some images on the computer. Here we have unedited images, and then the images as I edited them for delivery. So this here is just on quick photo. One little toy I've been playing with is this little, gosh, who makes it? Reflex Labs. It's a tiny, itty bitty little flash, something that I've just wanted to have for a while, just to throw on a camera. It does introduce some complications where you have to go to optical viewfinder, but I've set a shortcut to that so I can actually see what I'm photographing, and then it has one power. Really cool little deal. They've been out of stock for a while, and I picked one up. It is tiny. It's really cool. So this is me just playing around with that. I found that lens probably no longer than 2.5 inches can cast a shadow. 2.5 inches and shorter will not cast a shadow. It also depends on your focal length. If you're really wide, you might get a little shadow in the base. So you just got to watch out for that, see what works for you. But yeah, here is an image at 500 ISO, and here is the edited image. So very sharp. I cannot tell the difference between image quality, so that is not a reason to buy this camera. And here's an unedited image. It's 200 ISO. And this is, I just love these colors, these blues, the greens, and the magenta skin tones. Obviously we have beautiful light as well. So just kind of running through these a little quicker. These are just my preset edits, very basic. And right here, this is just a 100% win for me. This is the 51.2. You can see my settings at 200 ISO. And just this glow, her skin is just gorgeous. Nice warm tones. And I always love Canon flares. They got that nice red. You know, again, I will use any camera you put in my hand and probably be happy with it, but I have chosen to use Canon for quite some time. And just love these purples that I'm getting. Obviously this light is phenomenal, so that helps. And 200 ISO. And let's jump into, we're at 1000 ISO here. We're starting to get some grain. Obviously, you know, it's not much different than the original R5, but all those other added features for me are amazing. You can run, you know, the noise reduction on there, and it'll take care of it if you want, but I just leave it because I think it looks great. And just a beautiful image. But these focus capabilities of this camera are phenomenal once you get them dialed. So here we are at 640 ISO. I'm just using a flashlight to light this, which has a little bit of a green tint. So I edited that out, and looking great. And then here are some really high ISO, 2500. You know, I got high. This camera didn't do too well at this. So here I did edit it, and I'm just going to crank up my exposure. I'll just go over here real quick and just really crank it, and you'll see we start to have some issues, some banding or whatever that is. Not great, but you know, it happens. And here another image at 2500 and edited. You know, I'm editing for the highlights, so it's not a big deal, but you can see a little bit of that, you know, color artifacts and issues. So something to be aware of. And here we are at 2000 ISO. And again, just editing for the highlights here, so you know, no big issue at all. This one here does have noise reduction. This one does not. So I just ran 30 on the noise reduction scale through Lightroom and took care of it. And here we are with 160 ISO, nice and sharp, just focused right on the eyes, 1.2. Well, you can't really miss with this camera if you know what you're doing. So here's the edited image. And another one. This is the 50mm 1.2, unedited. Looks great, and edited. So loving these colors. And here's a more creative photo with a prism at 1.2. And looks great. Focus is on point, and here we are. I use 28-70 quite a bit. And here I had to push this image a little further just because the dynamic range needed to be pushed because we were in the shadows and we had the mountain in the highlights. And so here's the edited image. That's what we ended up with. And I love that I can just focus, use the focus point, get on the ring, and pretty darn sharp at 1.2, and edit it out great. So love this focus system. And here we are early in the morning, 250 ISO. I generally will add grain to my photos a little bit, so having a little bit of grain is not a problem for me. I'll put Mount Hood here. Here's a family shoot, 200 ISO. Nice and crisp. So my cousin's here. And edited. It's great. It's phenomenal for kids. Keeps up with them. And this is what a $20,000 guitar looks like. This is unedited, just in the studio. I've got 5 lights on this deal. Working with a lot of lacquer, so a lot of glare. And the edited image came out great. Using the 142mm at the 7200 at f5. But yeah, looks great. And a wedding coming down. Oh, my bad. Sorry. Magic mouse is jumpy. All right, coming down aisle, no problem at all. Tracking. Again, you need to get your settings right so that you track the right person because this camera can be jumpy. It's very quick to focus and jump around. So here we are at 1.2, 100 ISO, and edited. Here's my daughter playing soccer. I had to shoot at 1000 ISO. So, you know, not as much contrast at 1000 ISO as I'd like. And there's, you know, she is moving fast. So I'd keep the shutter up. I used the 100 to 400 with the EF. But yeah, it tracked well, very well. And so I also used the eye tracking and it worked pretty good. I had to calibrate it for this scene. I won't use it at a wedding because there's just too many scenarios. Here's another one of her running. Nice and sharp. And edited. And then just a little hike with my wife up to one of our favorite spots here in Oregon. And the dog. And nice and sharp. Of course, shooting at 4.5 with the 28-70. That's kind of my go-to all-around travel lens. And then just with the tripod with the interval timer. Pretty good. Nice and sharp. And a wedding up in Snohomish. These guys are wonderful. And nice and sharp at 1.2. No problems there. And then we are at 1000 ISO. I'm using the Godox lights, the ML by 100, and those things have been phenomenal. So yeah, looking just nice, and there's a little bit of grain, but I don't mind it at all. I would add a little more grain to this probably anyway. And yeah, focus was great. And so here's the edited image. And I'm not adding any grain to these edited images right now, just so you can see what they look like edited when you push them, because when you push some of these files at higher ISOs, you're going to introduce a lot of grain. But yeah, this is just beautiful colors. Focus right on his eye, eyelash, and then a couple more from this wedding. This was the first wedding that I photographed, so I was a little nervous to use it because you know, you just never know what kind of settings you might have missed. But nothing, had no issues, worked great. And just a portrait here. 100 ISO, cloudy day, crisp as can be, and there's the processed image. So yeah, cool. Yeah, this camera, I've had really no complaints. You know, there's always that question of like, oh, did I make a good decision? Is this camera going to work? Is it going to be the best solution for me? Should, you know, you're going to ask yourself, don't ask me if you should buy this camera or not. I think it's a decision you have to make on your own because of the price. It's very expensive. The sensor in the original R5, phenomenal. I love the colors. I do prefer it a little bit over the R62 just because it has a little bit better, I'm going to say like color retention when you start to edit. It just looks a little cleaner, a little more natural. Obviously it's a higher megapixel, and so you kind of get that with higher megapixels. You don't have to push the, you can push the files a little further before colors start to, change on you. So I think this camera is phenomenal. The startup time on the R6 II is very fast. I got pretty frustrated with my R6 as it was getting slower because I had the R6, or sorry, the R5, the original, because the R6 II starts up so quick. That was a big thing that was great for me and a positive. I'm going to keep my R5s probably just for video because I do have my brother come out and video elopements with me, and then we send that footage off to Wanderlust to be edited. And I really do like the what we're getting out of the files, the video files. I do love the video out of the new R6 II, but to buy 2 more of those to have 4 would be very expensive, and so I'm probably not going to do that unless I was videoing a lot more. So overall, I think for me it has been a great upgrade. Should you upgrade, that's up to you. My only complaint about the camera would be the price, but like I said, I've already bought them, so it doesn't affect me anymore. I've already spent the money and I can't go back, and I'm not disappointed about that. I'm able to work quite a bit to pay for them, and I use these things 3 to 4 times a week, and so I'm making plenty of money off of them, so I'm not worried about that, and I know that it's going to last me a long time. The electronic shutter is a little weird. It's different. I've used plenty of electronic shutters before. You don't get that full tactile feel of like being like an artist or a photographer. I can run the shutter if I want. The shutter life on these are rated at like 500,000, and I usually get to about 200,000 before I sell a camera, and have had no issues with any of the Canon cameras. But it doesn't give you that like full tactile feel. It is very efficient, which is awesome. You can shoot, dial it in however many frames per second you want. But yeah, we'll get into that menu now. It's enough of me rambling about how much I like the camera. It's all opinions. So this is my opinion. There's a lot of other opinions. And so, yeah, it's just, what does the internet need but another opinion? So I'm just here to help you make a good decision on whether or not you think you want to upgrade or not, or should upgrade. I don't think it's completely necessary. I do think it is nice. It's a luxury, and it is very helpful for work if you're working a lot and you're staying very busy. But again, it's a different beast. It is, there's not some things are upgraded and they're wonderful, and some things like the sensor are not. So, all right, I'm gonna jump ahead to where I put on my screen recorder, and we're gonna walk through this this camera and set up the menu and tell you how I put it all together to work for my needs. Like I say, I photograph a lot of different things, and so there are times when I'm just doing headshots and I don't need to control the focus much, or sports where I'm playing around with just photographing my daughter. I photograph elopements, I photograph weddings, I photograph a lot of magazine work. Like I did a comedy show the other night where I was just snapping a couple photos, and it didn't really need a highly functioning autofocus system. That was very slow paced, where a wedding, just straight up chaos. I could shoot for 12 hours, be in 20 different scenes, and just, you never know what you're going to come up against. So, yeah, so I think I have a pretty broad setup here to work for different people. So, all right, going to go grab that screen recorder and I'll be back. Okay, so I have a screen recording here so I can show you everything that I see in my menu. I'm going to walk through a full menu setup for you. That way you can see how I set it up. I'm probably going to miss some stuff, so I apologize. And if I get anything wrong, before you comment, check the notes. I will correct it because, I'll forget something. A couple quick things to note. There's a new battery. The new battery, I found that I got around 4,000 images with on a wedding day, shooting constantly. And then I found that I got around a little over 2,000 with the old battery. Old battery goes pretty quick, so something to think about. You're probably going to want to upgrade. One of the number one things that will probably make people want to upgrade is when you put in the old battery and you turn the camera on, it's going to prompt you with a little disclaimer that tells you a lot of your settings aren't going to work, and that alone is annoying. So that's probably why most people will upgrade, in my opinion. Other than the fact that it does work much better. Then there are some other settings like continuous shooting. So if you want to take a photo, you will half press your shutter, and then it will take so many, I think 15 frames prior to that when you click the shutter. And so kind of like a pre-buffer, which for soccer was really cool. For a wedding would be overkill. But for sports, man, that's probably a game changer for sports folks, which I am not. I'm just an enthusiast when it comes to that. And then I have purchased an Angelbird 1 terabyte, and then I've got a bunch of cards, but I have 512 and 1 terabyte CF Express Type B cards, and then usually around 128 to 256 or 512 on the SD cards. So yeah, anyway, in case you're wondering. All right, starting off, I'm shooting large JPEG, 10 quality, and then I am shooting with the C RAW. And so here I have card 2. I use my SD. I might change this in the future, but currently my SD card slot is capturing RAW, and my CF Express Type B is capturing JPEG, and then that thing can shoot forever because the JPEGs are not that big. C RAW is around 20 or so megabytes, which is pretty small, and so I can get 6,000, 10,000 images per card, and there have been wedding days where I've almost filled a card. Just very busy, shooting 12 hours, a lot going on. And it's easy to do with the electronic shutter because you can really dial that thing up. Aspect ratio, obviously full, which is 2:3. There have been times where I've shot 4:3 in headshot sessions just to kind of keep my framing a little better. Yeah. Next, we would have ISO speed settings. So here, I'm going to set these. Generally, I'll set the range 50 to, I'll probably set it down to 6400. If you click and then you move it and then you go OK. So that's just going to keep me from going over that. And then my auto ISO, I set 100 to 3200. You can't set 50, which is fine. And then I don't have anything set here. Anti-flicker, I have off. On video, I have it on. If you have anti-flicker on, you will not be able to go to pre-continuous shooting. So I turned it off, but I haven't had any problems with it. So, that's fine. And then external speed light control, I didn't touch. Metering mode, I didn't touch. I didn't touch anything here. And then picture style, I put on neutral. I generally prefer to edit with neutral as a color profile. I found that with this new file, neutral isn't working as well. I'm starting to get more color artifacts. So I've gone back to Adobe Color or Adobe Portrait with this new file with the R5 original and the R6, R6 II. I think neutral looks beautiful as a profile, and so I'll be probably a little bit of time before they dial that in. It took a while for the R5 original to get a good profile going, and so yeah, that was probably about a year or more before that came around. Color space are sRGB. I didn't change anything here. White balance, I will try and set a white balance throughout the day. I'm on daylight at the moment. Forget what I was shooting, but generally I'll be around cloudy on a clear day and then shade on a cloudy day. I like a little warmer tone in my images. Yeah, I found that I can edit a lot quicker if I have a set white balance throughout the day. It just makes it a little bit easier for me to just get everything to be consistent. If I'm in and outside, indoors and out a lot, or if I'm in a reception as weird lights, I'll go to auto white balance. I don't set a custom white balance. I did shift a little bit to magenta, you can see here. And then I didn't change anything here. Didn't change anything here. Obviously, I would just use these per case scenario. I like to make them high double exposures in Photoshop, just a little bit easier when I'm on a wedding day or a shoot. It's really quick, and I don't want to waste my client's time because I'm not that advanced and practiced at making double exposures in camera. So then drive mode, I'll change this. Generally for electronics, it's going to be on the slowest one, and then we'll get into later how you can dial that in. Then pre-continuous shooting, I only use for photographing my daughter and soccer. Don't use this. Silent function, you can just turn off, or you can go into volume too and turn down the volume to 0. Use electronic mode. I haven't had a need for using the actual shutter yet. I can use flash, no problem. I use the flash point. It's called the flash point. Oh my goodness. XR2C, it's the Canon version. I shoot it all manual at 128th power, and that thing is wonderful. Turn this off. That way, if you don't have a card in, you can't take a photo. And image stabilizer mode I have on for only shots. I don't know if it's going to affect battery, but I assume that it would, so I just have it on there. And then customize quick controls. You go edit layout, and then you get this fun little animation. I turned off only the image quality because I don't want to. I don't need to change my image quality, and that's if we press the Q button, and so you can change what you want in here. But that's all I did. And then metering mode, I didn't change anything. Image review, I turned off. It's super annoying if it's on. I don't know why it would need to be on. I'll press play if I want to check something. Then back out free display. I keep it on just because, I don't know. It's nice to see that little black thing pop up, kind of like a shutter. That way I know that I'm taking a photo. Just give me a, I might turn that off in the future, but for now I keep it on. Exposure simulation, I will only change, I think, no, I don't change that. I change this. Optical viewfinder simulation, which is like if you're looking through a mirrorless, not a mirrorless, a DSLR. So if you would see like the actual view of what you're seeing through mirrors, that way I will only use this for a flash that isn't made for Canon, so that it doesn't automatically do that. If I pop on a flash that's made to work with Canon, it will automatically enable this, but for that little flash I showed you earlier, that's what I would use this for. Don't use this. Shooting info display, I just turned all the other ones off. I have 1 and 2 on. I don't need the other ones, but if you do, then you can use them. And then same thing with the viewfinder, turned off that one because I don't use the histogram or the level. If you're doing landscape photos, probably want to use that, but I'm always just wanting to see my full screen with the minimal amount of information that I need to make sure I'm taking a good photo. Vertical display, I don't think I touched any of this. I didn't touch that. Didn't touch any of this stuff. So then here, didn't play with that. You could reverse the display, I guess, if you needed to. Okay, then here I have on servo. That's all I use. AF area, I mainly use this one. You can turn off other ones in the later settings, which I do just so I'm not having to scroll through too many. And then whole area tracking, I will turn on and off. This is where I find that this camera in particular is a little jumpy, and if you're used to the R5, which I was, and it was originally why I was getting a little annoyed with this camera, is because it's always wanting to track. So if you turn this off, the camera is not going to go nutso on you and track at everything. So here, I'll show you an example. So we have it on, and if we take a photo over here of my brother, it's going to grab his eye, and then if I, I could turn off, let's turn off face. So if I track anything, it's just going to go boom, 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 track, 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 and, may get what I want, may not. If I turn this off, let's do this really quick. If I turn it off, I go here, it's just going to take the photo. It's not going to track, which is basically what the original R5 did. So if you're used to the original R5, this is going to be really nice to be able to turn on and off. Unfortunately, you can't make this like a hot button. You can only put it in like your My menu settings, which I did, and I'll show you how to do that later. Okay, then we're going to go to subject detect. I turn on and off. I disabled, which you can do later in another setting. I disabled everything except people because I'm not photographing the other ones. And then when I press my custom button, it's going to enable or disable it. That way, I'll show you. If I want to take a photo and I want it to track anyone, then I can do that. And it's just going to jump around to whatever I guess it thinks it needs to track. Turn it off, then I can just press my eye autofocus button and have that control. And then this control, it's not going to track any eyes. And then again, so that will go on and off all day long for me, just because there's times when I want it and times that I don't. I've never registered a person. I might try that with my daughter for fun at a soccer game just to see what happens. And then I didn't touch this. I just left it on auto and did not touch any of this. Just left it as is. I limited the autofocus areas. You come in here and check the ones that you want off. And orientation, I do like it when it takes the autofocus point into account for vertical and horizontal and leaves it at that point. So if I set it somewhere on a certain part of the screen to vertical, it'll stay there. Then horizontal, it'll stay there. So for example, if I'm horizontal and I put the focus point over here and I go to vertical, it moves it back to wherever it was when it was vertical. Okay. Limit subject detect, I just turned off would be animals and vehicles. I left off and people on. You could do auto if you wanted. Turn that one off. It's just when you're toggling through, you don't only have to toggle once, you have to toggle 3 times to get through all the settings. Okay, and then oops. All right. Don't care about left or right. I just leave it on auto, I think. And then manual focus peaking is on. Focus guide, actually, I would have on. That's kind of nice if you manual focus. And then don't mess with that. Didn't mess with this. I might try and explore this later, see what I can do with that, but I haven't really found the best understanding of it, how it works. So these, I did not touch anything in here. Airplane mode on, that will double your battery life. If you want to transfer, you could turn it off. All right, this one here is important. You want to go in here to record separately. That will allow you to record two different things to two different cards, for example, RAW and JPEG, or RAW and RAW. And then I want to play back the file that I'm going to use, which is the RAW. And then actually this should be, here, press info. Should be on 1 because video is always going to have to record to card 1 because that's the faster recording card. Can change folder, I think. You can name the folder, I guess. Doing that. File name continuous. Format your card here. Auto rotate is nice. I put it on just the computer. That way I will see the full screen on the vertical images that I take. It won't like turn it sideways, and I'll just see a little strip of a vertical image on a horizontal screen. So yeah, I'll just show you an example of that. So if I take a vertical image, go that way. And if I press play, it will show it sideways. If that was off, let's turn it off. Auto rotate off. And I press play. Oh, it's not doing it. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. All right, press play. Then it's going to show the vertical image on a horizontal screen, which is, you know, you're just not going to see it as easily. I don't mind turning my camera. So I'm going to put that back to just on the computer. But when I get in the computer, I want it to show me what that image looks like when I want it to auto rotate, so I don't have to do it manually. That's what I meant to say. Okay, don't mess with this. Obviously set your time and time zone. I use an app called Timestamp where I take a photo of an iPhone screen that has a time on it with all of my cameras. Sometimes I'm using 5 cameras, and there's no way I'm going to get these all dialed perfectly, and then I'll just sync in Lightroom. Language. Okay, these I didn't change. Volume. I turned down the shutter volume, which is the electronic shutter, all the way. Turn off everything else, I think. This is nice to have on if you're going to take set a timer to take a picture of yourself on a tripod. Okay. And see, screen brightness. I think I did crank the screen brightness up because I was noticing that it was a little dark. I haven't had any issues with battery life, but you know, it's nice and bright. Viewfinder's auto. Didn't change anything else in here. Okay. Shut down sensor, that's fine. Sensor cleaning, that's great. Power saving, I disabled all of these for this example, but I would probably put these at the lowest setting. They took off eco mode, which would turn the screens down and dim them pretty immediately, because I pretty much am always pressing the button on there to wake it back up when I'm taking photos. So I want to do anything I can to extend my battery life. Okay. This is really nice. I don't use these custom modes ever. Guess you could if you had like different setups you're going to be dedicated to, but I shoot so many different things that doesn't really matter to me. It's nice to be able to save to a card and then just pop it in my other camera, all the settings. That way I can just, you know, don't have to do it on 2 cameras. That's very convenient. Battery info, this is nice to like see what I'm able to get. I use this a bunch where I just took a bunch of iPhone photos, and that's how I could keep track of how many images I was getting out of a card, around 4,000. Oh, copyright, I don't have to do anything. Firmware, there is a firmware update, but I usually wait a little bit to do those because it wasn't anything significant, just some bug fixes, and I haven't had any major bugs. So, all right, this is the fun part. Customize shooting buttons. So I set this just to autofocus and picture. Dual function, if you go into this and you press info, you can pick what you want it to do. For me, I just have it do autofocus, and that's it. That way I don't have to toggle through a bunch of things. So that allows me to pick my autofocus area. And then here I'm using this front manual function button to pick subject detect. And so that basically just turns it on and off. So I can have a little more control, and I can let over the camera. The camera is going to decide if I have this on, what it's going to photograph on. I set the light button, which I never change, to be drive mode. So I'll pick my drive mode. And then here, I set this one to, yeah, this one actually, I don't know what I'm going to set this to yet. I thought this would hopefully turn off like the full area detection, but it didn't, so it just tracks. So ignore that. This is eye autofocus. And then this is AF off, and just hold it down to turn it off to make panoramics. So I do a decent amount of panoramics. I don't do a ton, but it's nice to be able to just lock it off. And then this front button is to zoom, and I'll just use, I'll turn off the autofocus switch on the lens. I'll use this to zoom in and manually focus on rings and things like that, any details that I need to get really close to. And then this one here turns on and off the eye control. So I can enable and disable that. You're gonna have to calibrate it for every scene, but just, yeah, that works. And then this one you just turn on so that you can move the focus point around. And somewhere in this menu, hopefully I get to it, you can set the tracking speed when you're moving around. I have it set to high. And then I don't have any lenses with buttons, I don't think. So I don't use that. And then, yeah, I don't have any Canon, flashes. So, all right, so then control ring dials, I think I just set the front one to AV, and then you have to press the shutter to move the aperture up and down so that we don't bump it, which is kind of nice if you're in a hurry. Oh, and then actually, I guess I could say this, how I set them up. Front is shutter, rear is aperture, and then ISO on the big dial. Okay, and then I didn't mess with anything else in here. Didn't mess with that. Next, I pretty much turn off the touch screen anyway, so I don't bump anything, so I don't use this. Don't think I use this. I did, yeah. So here you can set that little joystick to +1, which is faster than 0. And I don't adjust these. I make this jump by 10. And then this is just by single. I don't think I didn't customize playback buttons. Eye control, I can turn on and off. And then this is where you would click here, and then you can calibrate it right there. I recommend calibrating it vertically and horizontal. And then if you're in a place with 2 different light sources, maybe do both directions. But yeah, I'm not an expert. Oh, this is another thing here. The pointer display. Turn it off. There's a little, like, you can make it purple or orange or white. There's this little thing that moves around. And I also set this negative too. If you have that on, it's going to drive you nuts. It's going to be like an eye floater in your eye where you're like, everywhere you look, it moves. And so just turn it off, and then it'll focus on whatever you look at, or not, depending on how your eyes work with this system. But yeah, so anyway, you can also change the shape of it, but that's what it looks like, that little circle. You can change it to this one, but just disable it. That way you won't get driven nuts, and it will focus where you look. And so yeah. Okay. Back to here. I disable touch. And restrict shooting modes. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not going to use, I could probably turn off more, but yeah, just turned off a couple so I don't have to dial through a bunch. Exposure income, I didn't change any of this. Number of bracketed shots, change that. All right. See, let me see if there's anything I'm missing. Nope, 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 nope. Didn't mess with anything in here. I don't know why you would use micro adjustments on a mirrorless camera, but I don't know. All right, continuous speed shooting. This is important. Come in here, you can dial in what you're doing. So low is great for me. High speed, I might actually turn this up for soccer. I would keep this at like 10. So first kiss maybe, walking down an aisle, anything that I think, you know, bouquet toss. I'll never use this, probably ever. You could set this to 30. But this is just in case. But yeah, you can dial these up to 15, this one down to 7.5, I think 10 is great. And this one you can dial down to 1 all the way up to 7.5. So 5 is good for me. So that's really cool. This, when originally the R3 came out, they didn't have this for a little bit, I don't think, and then they added it. So it's great to see here. Limit continuous shot, count shot, I don't need to do that. All right, come in, okay. Here you can come configure. You can add, select items to put in my menu. What I have in here, I don't know why I have drive mode. Don't really need that there, but optical view. So for the little tiny toy flash that I have, I can use that. Whole area tracking. This basically turns it into an R5 original with a little bit better eye autofocus. So I turn that on and off there because I couldn't find a hot button. I thought I could set my mode button to do that, but it didn't actually affect that setting. Pre-continuous shooting, enable, disable, and then anti-flicker. These work in tandem or they don't. So if this one's on, this doesn't. If this one's on, it doesn't work. If this one's on, this doesn't work. So you have to pick between one or the other, and it'd be blacked out if you, or like grayed out if you can't, if you have one of them on. So and then configure here. So I try and keep this to only the things that I just don't want to dive into the menu and try and find. You can set up, I guess, more settings in here, but that is it. Cool. All right. That took me about a month to figure out. It's hard to jump into this camera without using it and just like know what you're going to do with it. So yeah, you're welcome if this is helpful. So anyway, that's my thoughts. I don't know what else to tell you about this camera other than the autofocus is better than the R52. It has more options. It's quicker. It's snappier. You are going to want to dial it back for certain scenes and scenarios, and be able to set up those custom buttons so that you can do all that. But yeah, thanks for watching this. I'm just going to keep using this camera, and if there's anything significant that comes up, maybe I'll make a video on it, but probably from here on out, this is just going to be the end of it. Yeah, I'll be using this camera, and any of my work that you see will most likely be this, as well as the GFX 102. So it'll probably come from these cameras unless it's video. It'll probably be the R5 because I'll be using this camera for photos. So have a good day, and thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. If you subscribe, it does help me out. You know, and if you do go buy this camera, you can use the link below, and I get like, I think it's like $40. It's kind of cool. So if you do want to help out me with this channel, because this does take a lot of time. Yeah, I have to run now. Go get a haircut, and then I have to pick up my daughter from school. So I do, it does take a lot for me to get these out. You know, learning how to edit videos has been a whole nother animal. It's been fun. It's been challenging, and yeah, it's been a good time. So thank you for the support you've given me, likes and subscribes and comments, and just watching. So have a great one, and I'll catch you at the next video.